I never imagined that a choice I convinced myself was harmless could end my marriage. Yet, that's exactly what happened. My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old. And until recently, I truly believed my husband would never walk away from me. I thought our bond was stronger than any mistake, stronger than one impulsive weekend, stronger than my past. I was wrong. Let me take you back to the beginning. I had been married to Jason for 5 years, and we'd been together for 8 in total. Jason was the kind of man every woman dreams of, steady, dependable, always there when you needed him. He never raised his voice or played mind games. He worked as an accountant, came home every evening with a smile, and made sure our little house felt like a safe haven. We met at a coffee shop one rainy afternoon. I spilled my latte, he helped clean it up, and from there, it was easy. Dates turned into weekends, weekends into moving in together, and before I knew it, we were saying I do in front of our families. Jason trusted me completely. At the time, I told myself that trust meant freedom. Freedom to make my own decisions. Freedom to keep people from my past in my life. Freedom to decide what was harmless. I didn't see it then, but that mindset was like a crack in the foundation of our home, small at first, but ready to spread. Ryan was my ex from years before Jason. We dated in our early 20s, back when life felt like one big adventure. Our relationship was intense and passionate, like a fire that burned too hot and too fast. We argued over everything, where to eat, what movie to watch, even how to fold laundry. It crashed just as quickly as it started. We weren't compatible long-term, but the chemistry lingered in my memory like an old song you can't forget. After we broke up, I moved on, met Jason, and built a real life. Ryan faded into the background, or so I thought then. One day, Ryan reached out. He had just gone through a tough breakup. His message popped up on my phone while I was at work. "Hey, Emily. It's been forever. I'm not doing great. Just need a friend to talk to. Someone who gets me." I felt a pang of sympathy. He sounded lost, vulnerable. I replied, keeping it light. We chatted a bit, catching up on jobs and hobbies. He said he just needed someone familiar, someone who understood his quirks without judgment. When I told Jason about it over dinner that night, I kept my voice casual. "Ryan's going through a rough time," I said, stirring my pasta. He asked if I could stay at his apartment for a few days. Just to help him sort things out. I emphasized the word friend like it was a shield. I even laughed it off. "Relax, Jason. That chapter is over. I chose you, remember?" Jason didn't seem happy. I noticed it immediately, the slight tightening of his jaw, the way his eyes lingered on me a fraction too long. He set down his fork and looked at me steadily. But he didn't yell. He didn't forbid me. He just asked one simple question: would you be okay if the roles were reversed? If I went to stay with an ex for a weekend? I waved it off, feeling a twinge of annoyance. "It's different," I said, though I wasn't even sure why. "Ryan's not a threat. He's just sad and needs support." Jason nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "I trust you," he said quietly. "I just hope you're not confusing trust with tolerance." That should have been my warning. Those words hung in the air like a storm cloud, but I ignored them. Instead, I packed my bag the next morning. A few clothes, my toothbrush, some books to pass the time. As I zipped it up, I told myself this was no big deal. It was compassionate. Mature. Jason would see that eventually. The drive to Ryan's apartment took about an hour. When I arrived, he greeted me with a hug, friendly, nothing more. His place was small, a one-bedroom in the city with mismatched furniture and posters from our college days still on the walls. It felt oddly nostalgic, like stepping into a time capsule. We ordered pizza that first night and sat on the couch, reminiscing about old memories. We laughed about the ridiculous fights we used to have, like the time we argued over who ate the last slice of cake. We compared the paths our lives had taken, his job in marketing, my career in teaching, how we'd both grown up a bit. I told myself this was closure. Healing. Growth. I ignored the small voice in my head reminding me I was married and sitting on my ex's couch at midnight. I texted Jason to say I had arrived safely. His reply came quickly, okay. Good night. No emojis, no questions. No warmth. I remember thinking he was being dramatic, overreacting to something innocent. Over the next 2 days, things blurred in a way I didn't expect. I didn't call Jason as often as I should have. I told myself he was busy at work, that a little space was healthy for both of us. Ryan and I cooked together, simple meals like stir-fry and salads. We watched old movies, the kind we used to binge on weekends. We stayed up late talking about everything and nothing, dreams we had, regrets, what-ifs. Nothing physical happened, or at least nothing I considered physical. A hand on the shoulder here, a lingering glance there. That became my justification. If nothing crossed that line, I wasn't doing anything wrong. That's what I repeated in my mind, over and over. But each time, the line blurred a little more. A shared blanket during a movie. A joke that felt too familiar. I pushed down the unease, focusing on how good it felt to be needed, to be the one helping someone else for a change. By the third night, I decided to come home early. Not because I felt guilty, at least, not fully, but because I was ready to return to my real life. To Jason, to our routines, to the stability I took for granted. I even smiled during the drive home, rehearsing how I would tell him he had nothing to worry about. That this whole episode proved how mature and trusting we were as a couple. We'd laugh about it one day, I thought. When I pulled into the driveway, the lights in the house were on. Relief washed over me. Maybe he had made dinner. Maybe he'd greet me with a hug. I opened the door and called out his name, but I froze in the entryway. Jason was sitting at the dining table, his coat still on, keys neatly placed in front of him. He wasn't angry. He wasn't pacing. He didn't even look surprised to see me. It was as if he had been waiting for a bus, not his wife. "You're back early," he said calmly, his voice even. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "I thought I'd surprise you." He nodded once. "Sit down." I didn't like being told what to do, but I did it anyway, pulling out the chair across from him. The silence stretched longer than it should have, heavy and uncomfortable. "Did you enjoy your stay?" he asked finally. "It was fine," I said quickly. "Like I told you, we were just friends hanging out." Jason leaned back in his chair. "I know," he said. "That's what you kept saying." I crossed my arms defensively. "Why are you acting like this?" "I didn't do anything wrong." He looked at me then, really looked at me. And for the first time, I saw something I had never seen in his eyes before. Not anger, not sadness. Disappointment. Deep, quiet disappointment. "I'm not saying you cheated," he said evenly. "I'm saying you chose." "Chose what?" I asked, confused and starting to feel defensive. "You chose to prioritize another man's comfort over your husband's boundaries," he replied, his words measured. "You chose to sleep under another man's roof while I sat here wondering why my wife thought that was acceptable." "That's not fair," I snapped. "You said you trusted me." "I do," he said. "And that's why I didn't stop you." Trust isn't about control. It's about seeing what someone does when they're free to choose. My chest tightened, like a weight was pressing down. "So what? You're punishing me now?" "No," he said quietly. "I'm protecting myself." He stood up then, grabbing a folder I hadn't noticed on the table. He placed it in front of me, divorce papers, neatly organized, already signed on his end. I stared at them, my mind reeling. "I waited for you," he continued. "Not to yell, not to argue. Just to be sure. And sitting alone in this house made something very clear to me." "Over a visit? Really?" I whispered, my voice breaking. He shook his head. "Over a pattern. Over disrespect disguised as innocence. Over you telling yourself a story where I'm supposed to be okay with being second." Tears blurred my vision. Jason, please. We can talk about this. I'll cut him off. I'll do whatever you want. He picked up his keys, his movements deliberate. That's the problem, Emily. I don't want to be with someone who needs to be told not to cross lines. He walked past me, pausing briefly at the door. I loved you, he said softly. But I love myself more. The door closed behind him. For the first time since we met, Jason didn't look back. Sitting there alone, the truth finally settled in like a cold wave. I hadn't lost my marriage because I stayed with my ex. I lost it because I convinced myself my husband's boundaries were optional. And by the time I realized the difference, he was already gone. The house felt empty, echoing with what-ifs. I wish I had listened to that small voice earlier. I wish I had chosen differently. But wishes don't change the past. They just remind you of what you've lost.